SB 610. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 610 by Senator Wright and others, an act relating to firearms.
Mr. Gatto.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and colleagues. I will talk as slow as possible to give a chance for all the people who want to vote on this terrific bill to come back to the floor. SB 610 is a modest measure that would save consumers unnecessary costs in the permitting process for a concealed weapons permit. It would correct a manifest injustice in the process, which is currently in certain counties when people apply for a concealed weapons permit, they have to go through all of the procedures and pay for insurance and pay for background checks and pay for all sorts of things, and then they're told that their permit was denied. This is an incorrect way to do business. It's unfair. It produces a tremendous amount of unnecessary costs for your constituents and mine who are applying for a concealed weapons permit. Just want to note that recent amendments happened that took the opposition or most of the opposition off the bill. The California Police Chiefs Association is no longer in opposition. The Brady campaign is no longer in opposition. This is a good bill. It makes good sense, and I ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Knight.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and all you members. I, too, rise in support of this bill. This is a good bill. This talks about, as we move forward with concealable weapons, if people are going to move through the process, let's let them get through the process before the payment. Because some people have gone through the process, they've made the payment, and then they've gone through the process and found out that they can't get it. And that's just that's very unfair. This is the proper way, and I urge an aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Mr. Gatto moves the call. File item 177 through 180 pass and retain. File item 181 pass temporarily. File item 182 has been dispensed with. File item 183 pass and retain. File item 184 has been dispensed with. File item 185 pass and retain. File item 186 SB 503 on the amendments. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 503 with amendments by Assemblymember Wieckowski.
Mr. Wieckowski.
Good afternoon, Madam Speaker and members of the Assembly. The amendments taken were technical and clarifying in nature and removed some of the chaptering out issues. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, and without objection, we can take a voice vote on these amendments. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. Out to print and back on file. Okay, file item 187, passed temporarily. Okay, we're starting at the top. Again, does any member have a bill they're ready to present? Any members? Okay, Ms. Atkins. Ms. Atkins, if you can let us know what number, what item, file item, and...
File item 108, I believe, Madam Speaker. SB 757.
Okay, file item 108, SB 757. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 757 by Senator Liu and others, an act relating to discrimination.
Ms. Atkins.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Under existing California law, health insurers are required to provide the same coverage to domestic partners that they provide to a spouse. Unfortunately, some out-of-state health insurers are refusing to insure domestic partners and spouses of gay and lesbian Californians, despite the clear intent of the California legislature to prohibit the sale of discriminatory policy in California. SB 757 would simply close this loophole by requiring any health insurance policy issued to someone in California to be subject to the state's requirements for equal coverage. This bill not only ends this discriminatory practice, but also ensures a level playing field for California's licensed insurers. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Your key is out. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Ms. Atkins moves the call. Okay, file item 124, SB 364. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 364 by Senator Yi and others, an act relating to taxation.
Mr. Eng.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. This bill, Senate Bill 364, creates a penalty on corporations or companies that claim a business tax credit enacted moving forward after January 1st that fails to maintain a requisite number of full-time employees in future years. This bill will allow California to join 20 other states that have enacted similar taxpayer protections. This penalty only applies to credits created moving forward in the future. That penalty is capped at the amount a company uses to reduce its net tax. California expends billions in tax breaks. This bill will bring accountability. We have made billions of dollars in cuts to education, health, and human services. I believe we cannot afford to waste billions of taxpayer money in corporations that do not retain or create jobs here in California. If the tax breaks are enacted and the jobs are not created, this bill brings much-needed accountability.
Mr. Donnelly.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, members. You know, this is a perverse measure that penalizes businesses for the failure of this body to create a friendly climate to business. Why in the world are we going after the very businesses that we're claiming that we want to help when in fact we're saying, hey, we're going to do a clawback on you if you haven't created the jobs that we want you to create, even if you have to sink the entire ship just to retain those employees. What is the impediment to jobs is not the employers. The impediment to jobs, and you'll note that the governor has finally gotten on board and started talking about jobs for the first time all year. And he's even made threatening statements that he might actually repeal some regulations. Well, I have a suggestion for him. Why don't you start with AB 32 and suspend that till we get unemployment under 5%? Why don't you actually do something about the 8-hour work day so that we don't have to pay somebody just because they've worked beyond 8 hours? Give them the flexibility. There's a whole bunch of suggestions. Why don't you do something about tort reform? Why don't you actually create a business climate where we have too many jobs like they do in Texas? But instead, you want to penalize companies that might have used a tax incentive to try to survive and to try to stay here. And I think this is sending the wrong message. You're creating a climate of uncertainty among employers.
Mr. Donnelly, if you can speak to the bill, specifically to the bill.
I'm sorry, was there some point at which I was not speaking to the bill?
If you can speak to the
I'm talking about a bill that is another brick in the wall that we've built on our borders to keep companies out, because we have pulled out from underneath, we have actually pulled out from underneath these companies the welcome mat. And I'm sorry if the chair doesn't like my line of reasoning, but I object to this, and I think the vast majority of California businesses who have participated in these programs object, because they bought into it thinking, hey, this is something that we're going to have going forward. And I think right now, this is the wrong time for this kind of signal. We need to make California a friendly place for business. I urge a no vote.
Mr. Hagman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I do rise to oppose this measure as well. And to what my colleague was saying is we have businesses built on certainty in this state, certainty that they do long-term investments, they may get long-term gains back. This particular measure allows businesses to start to hire more employees, which we all want here in California. But with all the other changes and rules and regulations of the state, cost of doing business with energy costs and such are enticing our businesses to leave the state. So we're going to penalize them again by not allowing them to count on this aspect. We want them to look long-term, to grow their business here, not out of state. I will urge a no vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, Mr. Eng, you may close.
Madam Speaker and members, thank you for the opportunity and thank you for those very passionate comments that just preceded me. Members, this didn't preclude me quite yet. But members, seriously, this is to me, I have sat on this floor and I've heard members of both sides of the aisle talk about jobs. And that's incredibly important. In fact, one member came up to me and said, everything that we do should be measured by whether or not it creates jobs or informs us about how to create jobs in the future. Remember, this bill does that. This bill says that if you get a tax credit, the California legislature and the people of California want to know that you're going to retain jobs. Hasn't been done before, but we're going to do it now. We're going to join 20 other states to take a stand and say that jobs are so important that in this particular area of tax credits, if you lose 10% of your workforce, you're going to have to give back some of that tax credit. Secondly, this bill does something that I think levels the playing field in terms of the rhetoric that we've heard. We've heard about job killer, jobs going out of the state, the uncertainty in the economic climate to the employers. Well, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, this bill adds certainty to families. On the one hand, we have job killers, but we also have family killers. And what happens to the family when a business decides arbitrarily, after taking a tax credit, to lay off people in dozens or hundreds at a time? And this bill says to those families that the breadwinners in those families that pay for the mortgage so that we don't have to have the foreclosures, that pay for the car payments so that we can get the auto industry back on its feet, to pay for the tuition so that the young people have a path forward, that they have to count in the equation that we call California and the creation and retention of jobs. So this is a good bill. Finally, members, I just read an article that the United States of America is looking at whether or not the $75 billion that we spend every year on Homeland Security, whether we're getting what we need to get out of that. It's a question of oversight moving forward, that if we're giving something, what are we getting back for it? And this simply tells us that when we give a tax credit, let's make sure that we're getting not just job creation, but we're getting job retention. This bill does not say that if you take a tax credit, you have to create jobs. All it does, and I think it's very reasonable, is that when you take thousands of dollars out of the California economy, out of the general fund that you could use for education, that you could use for transportation, the safety net, et cetera, that you simply keep the jobs in California, keep them at your workplace, and that if you don't, you've got to give a portion, not all, you've got to give a portion of that back. The bill is reasonable because if you can't do the report, there is a way to opt out if it's not willful failure. The bill is reasonable because other states do it. And finally, and most importantly, it only applies to employers that have more than 100 employees. I think it makes good sense in this particular economic climate. A vote for this bill is a vote to keep jobs, not just in California, but to keep jobs at the very workplaces that make up the wonderful state that we call California. Respectfully request that I vote.
Clerk will close the roll. Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will open. Clerk, all members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Mr. Eng moves the call. Dr. Halderman?
I object to the moving the call. That requires a majority of those present and voting.
Okay, takes the majority of those present and voting. It's not debatable. Mr. Eng is requesting that the matter be placed on call. Dr. Halderman, seconded by Mr. Calderon. Dr. Halderman is asking for a no vote.
Actually,
It's
no,
not debatable.
because it's...
Clerk will open the roll.
Ma'am,
All
I think
members
this...
vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Mr. Eng asked for an aye vote. Dr. Halderman asked for a no vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 41, noes 25. The measure is on call. File item 174, SB 408. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 408 by Senator Hernandez, an act relating to health facilities.
Mr. Bradford.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and colleagues. I'm pleased to present SB 408 as we talk about health care reform. This is a common sense measure in that direction. In 2010, Prime Healthcare used a loophole in licensing process to acquire Alvarado Hospital, despite the fact that Prime Healthcare was being investigated by the Department of Public Health. The licensing process is designed to ensure that those operating a health care facility, like a hospital, are capable of running a hospital and have the history of complying with state law. This bill simply closes the loophole in the hospital licensing process to make sure that when a hospital changes ownership, the new owner actually obtains a license to operate the facility regardless of the manner in which the hospital is acquired. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. 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 Mr. Bradford moves the call. File item 102. SB 746. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 746 by Senator Lewin, act relating to tanning facilities.
Mr. Calderon.
Yes, Madam Speaker and members, it's a very easy bill to understand. It would prohibit anyone under the age of 18 from using the tanning salons. And that's it. I ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, Mr. Knight.
Sorry, Madam Speaker and members. I just want to be clear about this. You can't use a tanning salon under 18 without parental consent. You can get STD medical treatment. You can get an abortion, but you can't use that tanning bed. Just want to make that clear. I ask for a no vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, Mr. Calderon, you may close.
Just a few stats. Members, skin cancer is the most common type of cancer and accounts for nearly half of all cancers in the United States. Melanoma, as it is called, is one of the most common cancers diagnosed among young adults. It is the leading cause of death in women ages 25 to 30. Only second to breast cancer. The science is clear and undebatable that those that first use UV tanning beds as children have an increased lifetime risk of melanoma by 75%. The World Health Organization elevated tanning beds to a level of 1 carcinogen, along with plutonium and mustard gas. The United States Department of Health and Human Services and the U.S. Food and Drug Administration have also added these tanning beds to their list of most dangerous forms of cancer. In February, the American Academy of Pediatrics joined the worldwide chorus that government needs to ban minors' access to tanning salons. I think there's ample evidence to require that before anyone uses a tanning salon, that they understand the consequences of their acts. And so this would simply apply to minors in California. Ask for an aye vote.
Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 41, noes 23. Measure passes. Okay, if any member has a bill they'd like to take up, if you could come up and let the clerk know which file item. We've got 4 items on call. We're going to take up a motion to reconsider file item 69. Actually, file item 69, SB 16. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 16 by Senator Rubio, an act relating to energy and declaring an urgency thereof to take effect immediately.
Mr. V. Manuel Perez.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. SB 16 establishes an expedited process for the review and issuance of incidental take permits within the Department of Fish and Game for renewable energy projects. The bill is the result of many hours of negotiation and compromise. This bill sets clear and reasonable timelines, increases communication and accountability between the Department of Fish and Game and the applicant, all without compromising the Department of Fish and Game's mission to protect species. As we have all heard from the business community, certainty and predictability greatly affect their ability to secure financing. Investors in renewable energy need to have some ability to
Mr. Perez,
predict.
I'm sorry. This is on the motion to reconsider your bill, not the merits of the bill yet.
Okay. Well, I ask for reconsideration.
Any objection to unanimous consent to reconsider the bill? Mr. Hagman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let's do a roll call vote on this for the motion of reconsideration. And my understanding is a 41 vote for the reconsideration.
Okay, it takes 41 votes to reconsider this bill. Mr. Hagman asked for a no vote. Mr. Calderon asked for an aye vote. Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 42, noes 17. Motion to reconsider is granted. Okay, clerk will read the bill. File item 69, SB 16. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 16 by Senator Rubio, an act relating to energy and declaring an urgency thereof to take effect immediately.
Mr. V. Manuel Perez.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I'll start where I ended, if that's okay. And as we all heard from the business community, certainty and predictability greatly affect their ability to secure financing. Investors in renewable energy need to have some ability to predict when they can move past permitting and begin construction of their projects. The process to secure an incidental take permit is after a long and thorough CEQA process. SB 16 is double joined to AB X113 and has received bipartisan support, and there is no known opposition. And on behalf of Senator Rubio, I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Requires 54. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Mr. V. Manuel Perez moves the call. For the members that are not down here on the floor, we are closing soon, so please come down on the floor. I'd hate to call you all by name, and I will. File items 119, SB 222. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 222 by Senator Alquist, an act relating to health plans.
Ms. Lowenthal.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Amendments to Senate Bill 222 delete the contents of the bill and add language to ensure that every individual health insurance policy provides coverage for maternity services. It's an important bill for women's health and has come through this body several years in the past. The content of these amendments has been heard and passed by relevant policy committees on both the Assembly and the Senate. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
She's on the amendment.
Sorry, Ms. Lowenthal, we just got your amendments this morning, so you'll have to take up that bill tomorrow with the amendments.
The blocks ones are.
Okay, so Friday, September 2nd is the last day to amend bills. The session schedule for tomorrow, Friday, September 2nd, floor session at 9 a.m. Floor session at 9 a.m. We're going to lift calls on bills. Mr. Calderon?
Yes, Madam Speaker, I request unanimous consent to rescind the floor action of August 15th, whereby AB 456 by Mr. Wagner was re-referred to Judiciary Committee pursuant to Assembly Rule 77.2, and to return the bill to the Senate for further action.
Without objection, clerk will note.
Also, I request unanimous consent to rescind the floor action of earlier today, whereby file item 171, SB 711 by Senate Insurance was re-referred to the Insurance Committee pursuant to Assembly Bill 77.2, Assembly Rule 77.2.
Without objection, pursuant to Assembly Rule 77.2, I'm re-referring file item 171, SB 711, Senate Insurance Bill to the Committee on Natural Resources.
And lastly, request unanimous consent to suspend Assembly Rule 63 to allow Ms. Skinner to take up file item 3, SB 244 by Ms. Hancock without reference to file for the purposes of third reading today.
Without objection. Okay, we're going to take up file item 3, SB 244. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 2. Senate Bill 644 by Senator Hancock and others, an act relating to local finance and declaring an urgency thereof to take effect immediately.
Ms. Skinner.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I rise to take SB 644 for passage without reference to file. SB 644 ensures that Doctors Medical Center, a community-based hospital located in West Contra Costa County, has the appropriate financing to keep its doors open and maintain operations. The district has determined that it needs to borrow in the municipal market in order to continue operations for Doctors Medical Center and to repay an advance that was made by the Contra Costa County. SB 644 will create a statutory lien against the district's existing parcel tax revenue to ensure repayment to the lender. We have been asked to act this measure as quickly as possible so that it can be signed into law before October 1st to enable the sale of bonds at a reasonable rate. The bill was passed unanimously from the Assembly Local Government Committee. SB 644 addresses a district-related problem only. California does not assume any liability, financial or otherwise. There is support on both sides. I respectfully ask for your aye vote and for immediate transmittal.
Mr. Chesbrough.
At this point, I haven't seen any analysis on the bill. I have no objections or concerns other than wanting something in front of me.
The analysis should be up on your computer.
Enough time to look at it anyway.
Mr. Hagman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to let the Republican caucus know we got a WARF announcement placed on our desk over our lunch recess, and we do have a support recommendation on it.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 69, no 0. Ms. Hayashi, Mr. Mendoza, and Mr. Hernandez, if you could please come back to the floor. Mr. Mendoza is here. Thank you. Mr. Hernandez is here. Ms. Skinner.
Immediate transmittal, or did I already ask for it? Okay.
Okay, I'm ready to lift calls. 5 items on call. We're going to lift them in order on the computers. File item 176, SB 610. Clerk will post. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 48, noes 10. Measure passes. File item 108, SB 757. Clerk will post. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 45, noes 24. Measure passes. File item 124, SB 364. Clerk will post. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Mr. Eng moves the call. File item 174, SB 408. Clerk will post. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 45, noes 28. Measure passes. And file item 69, SB 16. Clerk will post. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 55, noes 15 on the urgency. Ayes 55, noes 15 on the measure. Measure passes. Okay, I have a correction. Floor session tomorrow, Friday, September 2nd, will begin at 10 a.m. Floor session tomorrow will begin at 10 a.m. Okay, we have one bill left on call, but Dr. Pan has an announcement.
Members, I just want to let you know that my office is collecting canned food from donations from all the Capitol offices to help unemployed members of the labor community as part of our Labor Day canned food drive, which I'm co-sponsoring with the United Way California Capital Region, the Sacramento Central Labor Council, and the Sacramento Sierra Building Construction Trades Council. So please have your staff bring in and the canned food. So, and join us this Labor Day weekend in helping unemployed members of the labor community. We're collecting all through this week, and we're having a little competition. I would just indicate that Fiona Ma's office is taking the lead on the donation. So, thank you.
Mr. Hagman?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I have an exciting announcement to announce. We have our first bipartisan baby from staffers up here. Brooklyn G. Norwood was born last night, 6 pounds, 10 ounces, from Turn Norwood from the Republican caucus and Deanne Norwood from the Democrat caucus. So congratulations to them.
Mr. Eng.
Lift the call on
Okay.
AB 364, item 124.
Okay, we're going to lift the call on file item 124, SB 364. Clerk will post. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 41, noes 27. Measure passes. Okay, so session scheduled tomorrow. Floor session is 10 a.m. All other items remaining will be passed and retained. All motions shall be continued. I'm ready to entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Calderon moves and Mr. Hagman seconds that this House stands adjourned until Friday, September 2nd at 10 a.m. Quorum calls lifted.
I think they're starting to go for next year.
Brownlee, vote change, file item 176, SB 610, from not voting to no.
Brownlee, Senate Bill 610, not voting to no.
All right, Amiano, file item 114, SB 590, aye to no.
Amiano, Senate Bill 590, aye to no.